This wasn't just football, it was emotional whiplash wrapped in 90 minutes of chaos, agony, and one almighty show of fight from a side that absolutely refused to die quietly. Villa Park, floodlights on, crowd roaring like they've been waiting years for a night like this. And honestly, they probably have. Champions League quarterfinal, the mighty PSG coming to town. And you just knew Unai Emery had some unfinished business with Europe. You could feel it. But let's be real. Before anyone could even think about miracles, PSG smacked the script clean out of Villa's hands. 11 minutes in, they were already behind. Not just behind in the match. No, the tie. Martinez fumbled a save, and who's there? Hakimi. Of course it's Hakimi. Fires at top corner, like he's at 5-a-side and someone's dared him to shoot from anywhere. Suddenly it's 4-1 on aggregate. And just like that, you can hear the doubt settle into the crowd like fog. And it only got worse. Mendes made it 2-0 on the night with a strike that kissed the post on its way in because apparently even the woodwork wanted to get involved. That made it 5-1 on aggregate. 5-1. Villa weren't just up against a team, they were up against gravity, fate, and a million people writing them off in real time. But then, out of nothing, Tielemans. Goal. One back. McGinn found him, he takes the shot, it deflects off Pacho and wrong-foots Donnarumma. And Villa Park erupts. It's not a comeback yet, but it's no longer a funeral procession either. Halftime comes. PSG are looking smug. Villa? Still alive, just. The win probability calculator gives them 10.4%, and even that felt generous. But you know what? That's the thing about belief. It doesn't care about statistics. Then comes the second half. Whatever Emery said in that dressing room, bottle it, patent it. It worked. Minute 55. McGinn. The man has the hairline of a dad on his 5th mortgage, but plays with the energy of a kid on Red Bull. He picks up the ball inside his own half. Just runs. Nobody stops him. He hits it from miles out. Takes a deflection. Goal. Villa Park detonates. 2-2 on the night. 5-3 on aggregate. Still an uphill climb, but now we're in it. The tie is alive. It's gasping. It's twitching. And it's dragging itself back into the light. Then Rashford, bless his suddenly rediscovered pace, rips through 2 defenders, dances his way into the box and feeds Konsa, who absolutely rifles it home. 3-2. Villa are winning the leg, the aggregate 5-4. You could feel the equalizer on the wind. You could hear it building in the crowd's throat. One more goal and they'd force extra time. One more. Emery throws everything. Barkley on. Asensio on, even though it probably confused his loyalties more than an international tax form. Watkins gets his moment off the bench. Villa are buzzing. The second half XG? A ridiculous 1.86. They're doing everything but score that 5th. Matson gets a golden chance right at the death. Volleyed effort, bottom corner written all over it. But Pacho throws himself into it like it's the last thing he'll ever do. And maybe it was. It's a goal-saving, tie-saving block. Villa Park gasps, then groans. Final seconds. The whistle goes. 3-2 on the night, 5-4 on aggregate. PSG stagger through to the semis. Villa? They drop to the turf like they've just run a marathon in full plate armor. But you know what? That's football. They gave it everything. Absolutely everything. PSG were hanging on by the skin of their designer boots in the end. You can talk about possession, about expected goals, about substitutions, but what really happened is that Aston Villa took on the oil barons of Paris and very nearly turned them into a footnote. McGinn was a monster. Rashford found his old self in the second half and reminded us he's still got sauce. Martinez made some key saves to atone for that early mess. And Konsa, a defender scoring like a seasoned poacher. This wasn't just a match. This was Villa Park roaring like it hasn't in years. This was belief, personified. And for a fleeting, glorious moment, it looked like a miracle was going to happen. It didn't. But for 90 minutes, you couldn't look away. And if you think this is the last we've seen of Aston Villa in Europe, then you haven't been paying attention. Let's start with Aston Villa. Look, no one expected Unai Emery to turn a Europa League fixer-upper into a Champions League fire-breather this quickly. But here we are. And even though they're out, you can't not respect what Villa have built this season. The backbone of this team is steel-reinforced spite. And if you squinted hard enough in that second half, you could swear you were watching prime Dortmund circa 2013, chaotic, hungry, and absolutely allergic to quitting. John McGinn, somehow still criminally underrated, was a one-man war. At this point, he's less a footballer and more a blunt object Emery wields to dismantle midfield structures. The man bleeds claret and blue, and he nearly dragged the whole tie back from the abyss with sheer McGinnergy. Rashford, who's been about as consistent as British weather lately, decided this was the night he remembered how to run and beat people and assist. A relic from a timeline where his confidence hadn't been surgically removed. Konsa, man played like he was being paid per last-ditch intervention and goal. When your center-back is flying up the pitch and burying chances like a striker, you know chaos is loose in the system. And let's not forget Emi Martinez, whose early spill handed PSG their opener, but who still managed to claw back some dignity with crucial saves. In classic Martinez fashion, he was either heroic or chaotic, and sometimes both in the span of 30 seconds. The fullbacks, Cash and Digny, ran themselves into the turf. Tielemans looked sharp again, helpful, considering he spent most of the season playing like he was sponsored by a sofa. Rodgers showed flashes. Onana did the dirty work, Ramsey came on and brought some fizz, and Asensio tried not to think too hard about how he used to share a dressing room with half of the team he was trying to eliminate. Bottom line, this isn't a plucky underdog team anymore. This is a problem. Villa came into this tie as underdogs, but left it as one of Europe's most annoying teams to play against. That's not a diss. It's a compliment. Nobody wants to face them. They're an Emery masterclass with caffeine and a grudge. Now, PSG. Paris Saint-Germain, the Rolls-Royce of football clubs, so many shiny names, so much annual disappointment. You half expect them to show up at quarterfinals wearing tuxedos and blindfolds, just to really drive home the point that they're somehow always underprepared. Did what he does, scored, got into dangerous spaces, made you wonder why the rest of PSG doesn't follow his example. He was electric. Dembele was... okay, that's a lie. He was actually really sharp. Created danger, played provider, tormented defenders. The man plays like a video game character whose dribble rating is set to 99 and decision-making is set to roll a dice. Mendes, out here moonlighting as a striker, he laced that second goal and might have quietly been their most effective player all night. Kvaratskhelia tried to get involved, but Cash stuck to him like a regret you can't shake. Vitinha and Ruiz in midfield were your typical PSG paradox, composed 1 minute, invisible the next. João Neves, the youngest of the lot, looked like he'd been dropped off at the wrong stadium and told to figure it out. To his credit, he mostly did. Marquinhos is still somehow only 29 and still doing Marquinhos things. Solid, classy, occasionally baffled by chaos. And Donnarumma? Saved PSG's skins more than once, especially from Rashford and Asensio. But he's also the only keeper who makes a routine save look like a 50-50 gamble. Still, credit where it's due. He stood tall when it mattered most. Luis Enrique, to be fair, came in with a plan, nick an early goal, sit on the lead like a dragon hoarding gold, and maybe toss in a second for fun. For 30 minutes, it worked. After that, it turned into a full-on siege, and the man looked visibly older by the end of the 90. But look, this PSG side is weird. Half Galactico showroom, half untested youth. They're still figuring out if they want to win trophies or make Spotify playlists of their best training ground nutmegs. And yet, they held on. Just barely. Because despite their DNA being made of cold sweat and quarterfinal exits, they actually showed grit. A rare export from Paris. Conclusion? Villa were the better team on the night, PSG were the better team across 2 legs. But if these sides meet again next season, don't be surprised if the balance tips. Emery's building something. And PSG, as always, are still figuring out who they want to be when they grow up. One side earned respect, the other barely survived it. Both will remember this one.